Hello my dears. Today I am going to start the subject which is zoology. This is NEET WORLD. Today we are going to start the batches from the long term batches. This is Ramesh. I am going to teach the subject zoology. So today I did take the topic which is human physiology, respiratory system. Human physiology is the topic which is highly productive, which is like 10 to 12 questions coming from the chapter, from the respiration to endocrine system, chemical coordination. There are 10 to 15 questions coming from the chapter. Okay. If come to the along with reproductive system, and reproductive health. So this human physiology from the respiration, circulation, excretion, neural control and coordination, locomotion and movement, chemical coordination and chemical control and coordination, and reproductive system and reproductive health. These topics, they can ask you guys 18 to 20 questions, 18 to 20 questions. Does it mean 45% of NEET paper zoology? Just think, this is the high productive and there is a challenge. If come to the physiology topics, yeah, MCERT is the prime book. You have to read line to line NCERT, and if come to the physiology, deep analysis is must. Okay. If come to the like animal kingdom, non-chordates and chordates, you go through the NCERT line by line and with the examples. Okay. That is fair. But if come to the physiology, you have to analyze deep. They can ask you any level of question. If come to the respiratory system, there is a question based on partial pressure. Of course, there is a knowledge in the NCERT book. Line to line, there is a knowledge in the NCERT book. But question is relevant to the matter. They did not ask you directly. They did ask you indirect. In that way, you have to deep analyze and understand observation of each topic. Okay. Yeah. If come to the human respiratory system, system is what? There is a any function which is either respiration or excretion, any function, they can functionate systematically. Okay. Here respiratory system, what is respiration first? What is respiration? What is respiration? Respiration is the chemical process, okay, that is involving the organisms where the energy is produced. Okay. It is the biochemical process where the energy is produced. Mean they can use the organic material in the presence of oxygen. They can break down the particles, food particle, and release the energy, chemical energy, which is the form of ATP. Okay. This is what respiration. So respiration, there are levels. Okay. We are going to discuss. First, the system is what? This is anatomical part. Anatomical part mean where it is completely depend on oxygen, respiration. So who can produce oxygen? First, oxygen. Who can produce oxygen? Plants. Okay. Plants. Plants can produce oxygen. There is no one here. Okay. So if the plants produce oxygen, it is enter into the atmosphere, right? Okay. produce into the atmosphere. Atmosphere. That is the atmospheric produce, it is plant can produce oxygen that can reach in the atmosphere. This is the oxygen which is need to enter into the human or any organism. They can take the oxygen, organisms, they can take the oxygen into the organism. If come to the human, if come to the human is the one of the organism, right? Human, they can take the oxygen. There is a process called respiratory system, respiration, process called respiration. In the respiration, there is a gas produced, okay? They can utilize the oxygen. It is the metabolic activity going to take place, reaction. This is the metabolic reaction going to create a gas. Another gas is carbon dioxide, okay? CO2 is the byproduct and ATP. Guys, just look into this. Who can produce oxygen? Who can produce plants? Who can produce carbon dioxide? Any organisms. They can utilize the oxygen, they can make the metabolic activity, they can release carbon dioxide. So, two gases are there. These gases, they can they can enter, and there is a process they can transfer into the final reach, and they can convert into the another product, and they can release another gas that can be released out. This is the process need to be take place. In this is the way. This is the way. First, there is a gas, oxygen enters. Where in the human there is a, first here just look into this, I am going to explain it. First, nasal cavity, the oxygen which is produced in the plants, they can enter nasal chamber, okay? They can enter first nasal, we can call it as external nostrils, okay? After that, they can reach oral cavity, and later on they can, next part is pharynx, they can reach the passage of this gas. The passage, oxygen enter, the passage of oxygen, first external nostrils, okay? After that, oral cavity, then pharynx, pharynx is the common passage for food and air. Food and air. After reach pharynx, this oxygen from the nostrils, they enter into the pharynx. After that, next they enter into the larynx, okay, larynx. Larynx is the sound box which is supported by cartilages. The cartilages are 9 in number. This is also important. 9 cartilages they can support. 9 cartilages. We will discuss the names of the cartilages. After this sound box larynx, there is gas enter into the trachea. Okay? Trachea. They can reach the trachea. Oxygen reach the trachea. Okay? From the trachea further divided. Okay? Further divided into 2 parts. They can enter into the left lung and right lung. Okay? Yeah. Trachea divided into the bronchi. Okay? Yes. Here just look into this. Trachea further divided into 2 parts, bronchi. Okay? Primary bronchi which is further divided, multiple divisions going to take place. Primary bronchi, secondary bronchi and tertiary bronchi. After that bronchi next further divided into bronchioles. Okay? This is the passage of this gas where it is origin by the plants. Okay? This is the passage up to the bronchiole. Bronchi which is primary bronchi, further secondary bronchi, further tertiary bronchi. Up to the tertiary bronchi they can divide it. This is all over taking place in the thoracic cavity, which is upper part of the human body, which is thoracic chamber. Okay? Yes, we will going to discuss where the lungs located in the thoracic chamber. We will going to discuss. And this is the tertiary bronchi. After that, bronchioles started. Okay? Bronchioles. Bronchioles, they can end with the terminal bronchiole. After that, up to here, this is the important, up to here is the conduction phase. Up to here, from starting onwards, up to here, this is conduction phase. Conduction phase where it is started from the external nostrils to terminal bronchiole. After that, there is a start of the respiratory bronchiole. Respiratory bronchiole started. We will going to discuss, this is the outlook where the gas started, oxygen where the ended. Okay? Yes. Yeah. Just look into this. Yeah. Trachea further divided into bronchiole. Bronchiole, they can end with the terminal bronchiole. Terminal bronchiole further enter into the respiratory bronchiole. Finally, they can reach alveolus. This is the alveolus is the functional unit of the, they can sacs, they can filled with oxygen. Okay? This is the functional unit of the lungs. Okay? Yes. We will going to discuss some terms. Before that, yeah, what is the external respiration, introduction of the respiratory system. What is external respiration? What is internal respiration? What is cellular respiration? Okay, we are going to discuss these three. Okay, first external respiration. External respiration, once the gas reach, gas is nothing but oxygen. Oxygen they can diffuse from high pressure to low pressure. Oxygen diffuse from high pressure to low pressure. High pressure to low pressure. So, where it is produced, there is a high pressure. Okay, where they can ultimately finally reach, there is a low pressure. So, here high pressure is atmosphere. From the atmosphere they can inhalation is what? We can breathe rich oxygen air, breathe out rich carbon dioxide air. This is the process we can breathing. Breathing is what? Take the inhale rich oxygen and exhale rich CO2 air. This is breathing. This is breathing. So, what about external respiration? It is exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air and blood. Between the air and blood. Exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air, between the lungs and blood. Where lungs mean alveolus. Alveolus and blood. So, just look into this. This is the alveolar sac. Okay, the oxygen which is enter into the alveolus. Okay, and once the oxygen filled this alveolus, there is a blood vessels, arteries and veins. They can carry the blood into the each part of the body, cells, okay, tissues, up to the tissue they can reach. Of course, there is a blood vessel they can reach into the alveolus. This is the blood vessel. The blood vessel which is finally they can distribute or blood or food particle or oxygen is capillary. There is artery, veins, they can further divide into capillaries. So, this is the blood capillary. Blood capillary. This is alveolus. Alveolus, blood capillary. Okay. So, the exchange, the oxygen which is enter into the blood vessel, the oxygen which is enter into the blood, and carbon dioxide which is exit from the blood vessel to alveolus. The gas exchange, either carbon dioxide or oxygen between the blood vessel and alveolus, called external respiration. First, the gas which is conduction phase up to the terminal bronchiole, where respiratory bronchiole started. Respiratory bronchiole is connected to the alveolus duct. Okay? This is the duct of the alveolus. and this alveolus duct which is connected to the respiratory bronchiole. Respiratory bronchiole. This is the respiratory phase. Respiratory phase mean the exchange of gases between two mediums based on their gradients. Diffusion is going to take place. Diffusion is the process from the high pressure to low pressure they can carry forward. So here just look into this. Oxygen they can reach blood vessel. Carbon dioxide they can exit from the blood vessel to alveolus. So here what is the partial pressure is high in the this process which is oxygen enter into the blood vessel. Just here just look into it, high pressure to low pressure they can carry forward. The exchange of gas between the alveolus and blood vessel as compared with this like partial pressure of oxygen is rich or low within the like alveolus and blood vessel. Alveolus is high or blood vessel is high, oxygen here. The partial pressure of oxygen where it is high? Alveolus is high, blood vessel is low. As compared with alveolus, blood vessel is partial pressure of oxygen is very low. So they can carry forward. If come to the carbon dioxide, blood vessel is rich and alveolus is low. This is the PYQ, previous year NEET question, one of the statement. And so guys, just look into this. How many layers? Layers the gases cross. Cross here. This is the one question. How many layers cross in the external respiration? External respiration nothing but there is a exchange of gases between the alveolus and blood vessel. There is the depend on partial pressure of that gas. Okay, that is they can cross the layers. How many layers they can cross in this process? Process called diffusion. Process called diffusion. In the diffusion process, how many layers they can cross here? 3 layers. What are they? Yeah. Yes, very good. Guys, just look into this. Alveoli is separate medium, blood vessel is separate medium. So here alveolus wall is made up of with, there is a tissue, 4 types of tissues are there in the human body. What type of tissue involved in the diffusion? Epithelial tissue. Okay, here the involvement of epithelial tissue. Here which type of epithelial tissue involved? Epithelial tissue also there are types. Which type of epithelial? Squamous, cuboidal, columnar? Squamous epithelial tissue. Squamous epithelial tissue which is involved in the external respiration which is between the alveolus and blood vessel. Squamous epithelial tissue which is located in the walls of the alveolus and the walls of the blood vessel. In the walls of the alveolus we can call squamous epithelial. In the walls of the blood vessels we can call endothelial cells, right? endothelial cells nothing but it is the modified squamous epithelial tissue. Okay. This epithelial tissue which is involved in the diffusion, and there is a base membrane, between these two lines of epithelial tissue. There is a base membrane also there. Through this base membrane, there is a gas exchange is going to take place, oxygen and carbon dioxide. How many layers they can pass here? 3 layers. 3 layers they can pass, which is squamous epithelial of the alveolar sac, endothelial cells of the blood vessel and base membrane. And there is another question. Diffusion is the process here this is the process here, diffusion involved in this exchange. It is the process is active process or passive process? Is it active or passive? Which one? This is the question. Is it active process or passive process? Diffusion mainly involved in the active or passive? This is the question also. Next predicted question. Of course, there are many statements regarding these questions in the coming NEET. Statement wise question they can ask you. Everyone knows there is a epithelial tissue which is involved in the diffusion like external respiration, but they can ask you the difficulty level, which is active process or passive process. This is about passive diffusion, always passive process, because of they can carry forward from the high pressure to low pressure. There is no external force involved in this, because of they can easily carry forward from the high pressure to low pressure. There is no consumption of energy. Breathing, which is inhalation, exhalation is like that. There is a which is in the breathing, which is active process and passive process. Forcefully we can breathe, active process. We can easily remove, which is exhale is a passive process. Mean here the process which is no external forces involved, because of this is passive process. There is no consumption of energy, no ATP involved here. So it is passive process. Diffusion is passive process. This is also the question which is came from NEET. And this is all over about external respiration. Okay? And what about the internal respiration? What about internal? Are you clear? You guys clear about it? Okay. Yeah. Next, internal respiration. Internal respiration. Yeah. External respiration, which is they can reach the blood. They can reach blood. This is the blood vessel, blood cell, oxygen which is reached the blood cell. Okay. From the blood cell, they can, this is the capillary, they can carry forward the oxygen and food particle into the cell, right? Yes. This is the cell. This is the oxygen. Okay, this is the cell. The oxygen which is enter into the cell, at the same time the oxygen which is utilize the cell which is utilize the oxygen and release the carbon dioxide. CO2 is rich here, where there is a production is taking place, there is a rich CO2 that is enter into the blood vessel, CO2. So, internal respiration mean the transport of blood between the blood and finally cell or tissue called internal respiration. Okay? Internal respiration, it is involve the exchange of gases between the blood and the tissue. Okay? Once it is reach oxygen, the glucose, the blood they can carry glucose also. Okay? The blood they can carry glucose and oxygen. Okay? Oxygen also they can carry into the tissue. This glucose utilize the oxygen, they can give the energy ATP and byproduct which is CO2. This is the CO2 exit out. Within the cell, this is the biochemical reaction going to take place. The organic matter that can give the energy called cellular respiration. Called cellular respiration. The cellular respiration is the metabolic process. Metabolic is the two types, anabolic and catabolic. Okay? This is the breakdown of food particle is catabolic. Okay? So, the process by which cells convert biochemical energy from nutrients into the usable, this is adenosine triphosphate which is ATP and release the waste product as CO2. Okay? This is about the cellular respiration. External respiration between the lungs and blood, internal respiration between the blood and tissue. Within the tissue there is a respiration which is cellular respiration. Three types, okay, right? Yes. Guys, just okay. So, here there is a conduction phase. The gas passage, right? The gas which is directly passed, there is no exchange of gas, no exchange of gases, no exchange of gases in the conduction phase. They can smoothly conduction up to the nostrils to up to where? Terminal bronchiole. Okay? Terminal bronchiole. So, this is the high pressurized gas. What is this? So, this is high pressure gas. Okay? They can create a friction. In this zone which has trachea, has, there is like trachea is the tube. There is a tube which is supported by a cartilages. This is important. Cartilages supported by cartilages rings. Which C type of cartilages? C type of rings. Okay? Mean incomplete ring. So, guys, which type of cartilage? There are types of cartilage which is white fibrous cartilage, yellow elastic cartilage, hyaline cartilage. Here, which type of cartilage they can support the trachea? This is the question. Which type of cartilage they can support the trachea? This is the question for you guys. Either hyaline cartilage, first hyaline, fibrous, okay, elastic. Which type of cartilage they can support the trachea? First question. And second question, trachea, the cartilage supports trachea up to where? Trachea further divided into branchiole, terminal branchiole, respiratory branchiole, right? Up to where? Up to A, like trachea only, trachea which is bronchi, okay, primary bronchi, and B, branchiole, completely branchiole, and C, terminal branchiole, and D, respiratory branchiole. These are the two questions from the conduction phase. Conduction phase where started external nostrils up to the terminal branchiole. That is the smooth conduction of air passage supported by cartilages, C-type ring, incomplete ring cartilages in the trachea. The cartilages are three types here: hyaline cartilage, fibrous, and elastic cartilage. Which cartilage they can support, and up to where, which part the cartilages ring are going to take place here, which part of the trachea, bronchi, branchiole, terminal branchiole, or respiratory branchiole. These are the two questions from this conduction phase. Okay, if come to the answer, guys, this is the hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is, they can support, right, and only bronchi, the trachea up to the bronchi only there is a cartilage which is support. Branchiole, they do not have cartilage. One question. And the next question, there is smooth functioning of the gas. This is tracheal cartilage, they can allow the gas, they cannot contract the tube. This is the air tube, right? This is the trachea is the air tube. This is the air tube is supported by cartilage. Does it mean they do not allow the contract? The size decrease of the trachea will not, they can allow the trachea to like they don't encourage that contraction of this size of the trachea. So in this way, there is a smooth function going to take place, the air passage supported by epithelial tissue. There is smooth functioning of air passage supported by epithelial tissue. epithelial tissue. Which type of epithelial tissue they can supported? I can give you the clue. Modified epithelial tissue, modified cuboidal epithelial tissue, modified columnar epithelial tissue, or modified squamous epithelial tissue. Which one? Modified epithelial tissue. Modified epithelial tissue. Which one? Modified columnar epithelial tissue. Ciliated columnar epithelial tissue is there. Where? In the trachea, upper trachea. Upper trachea made up of with ciliated columnar epithelial tissue that is involve the smooth function of air which is enter into the tube, okay, up to the terminal bronchiole. Okay. So, upper trachea is ciliated columnar epithelial tissue, lower trachea is cuboidal ciliated epithelial tissue. This is the questions they can ask you from the conduction phase. Conduction phase mainly up to the terminal bronchiole, which is supported by hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is up to the bronchi, okay. This like tube which is supported by the epithelial tissue, which is modified epithelial tissue. Modified mean ciliated columnar epithelial tissue in the upper trachea, lower trachea which is cuboidal ciliated epithelial tissue which is involve the smooth function of the gas passage. Up to here clear? Yes. This is about NEET strategy, guys. Okay. Yes. The respiratory passage which is conduction phase, where conduction phase? Here nose, primary, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, bronchiole. Up to the bronchus there is cartilage. Up to the bronchus, and here external nostril is the openings above the upper lip, and nasal passage they can filter moisture and warm air. After external nostril there is a nasal passage. Okay. Yes, they can ask you this kind of simple questions also. Okay. And nasal chamber, there is a pharynx which is pass up to the food and air, and larynx. Larynx is the sound box which is supported by 9 type of cartilages, Larynx which is supported by 9 cartilages. Trachea is supported by 1 type of cartilage which is hyaline cartilage, but if come to the larynx, larynx is the sound producing part, okay, supported by these guys. Yeah, just look into this cartilages, they can ask you a question. Epiglottis, they can support it, okay, and thyroid cartilage, arytenoid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, corniculate cartilage. These 5 types of cartilages they can support the larynx. Larynx box supported by 5 types of the cartilage. In number it is 9. Some are pairs, some are unpaired. They can ask you which type of cartilage is paired. Okay, they can give you the names. Here just look into this. Yeah, epiglottis. Epiglottis green wala, it is single unpaired. Thyroid cartilage, this is the thyroid cartilage which is paired. And arytenoid cartilage, this is also arytenoid cartilage paired. Okay, 2 is there, arytenoid. And cricoid cartilage, this is cricoid cartilage is 1. No, I will give you. Just look into this. Epiglottis is 1, unpaired. Okay? Yeah, this is 2, which is thyroid cartilage 2, paired. Okay? Just look into this one and this one, right? This one and this one, paired. And arytenoid cartilage also paired, 1, 2, paired. And cricoid cartilage is 1 only, unpaired. Okay? And yeah, corniculate cartilage also 2, 1 and 2. 3 are paired, which is thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, corniculate cartilage are the paired. Okay? 3 into 2 is 6 cartilages. Okay? And yeah, like cricoid cartilage and epiglottis is the unpaired. Okay? This is about the cartilages which is supported the larynx. Okay? Yes. Next, after that trachea, I am going to explain you again. Okay? Yeah, trachea and bronchial tree, which is where the larynx is over, trachea is started. Okay? Trachea, which is hyaline cartilage rings. Hyaline cartilage rings are there. Fibroelastic tissue is there. They might not ask you the tissue, they can ask you the supported cartilage. There is a function for the cartilage, that is why that is important. Okay? Yes. And this is about thoracic trachea. Thoracic is what? The trachea which is enter into the thoracic chamber. Thoracic is what? According to the vertebral column, first 7 bones are the cervical. First in the vertebral, first 1 to 3rd bone to 7 bones are the cervical, and next 12 bones, first 7 cervical, next 12 is the thoracic bones. Our vertebral column, according to the vertebral column, first 7 is the cervical, up to 12, next after 7, 8th to next 12 bones are the thoracic. Up to 5th thoracic, there is a trachea is enter up to the 5th thoracic, mean it is the thoracic part. Okay? They can ask you up to the level of the 5th thoracic. 5th thoracic. Okay? Yes. After that, there is a primary bronchiole, bronchi and secondary bronchi, next tertiary bronchi, finally they can reach terminal bronchiole. Okay? After that, respiratory bronchiole, which is directly connected to the alveolus. Okay? Up to here clear? Yeah. This is about the thoracic chamber, which is supported by the ventral part sternum, back dorsal part vertebral column, side wala ribs. Okay? Like first dorsal vertebral column, okay, ventral sternum, and lateral ribs. This is the thoracic chamber. We can call rib cage. The lungs are located here. These trachea, which is further divided into alveolus, enter into the lungs itself. Lungs started from this ear itself. Lungs started. Okay? Yes. Here, just look into this. The divide, this trachea divide into the mid thoracic, mean fifth thoracic, T5, and the right and left primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, after that bronchiole, terminal bronchiole, they can supported by incomplete cartilaginous ring, C-type rings, incomplete. If it is complete, 0, right? So, incomplete cartilaginous rings, they can support it, okay, up to here. Clear? Yeah. And what is the gas exchange? We did discuss. First, it is exchange part alveolus, the terminal bronchiole end the alveolus. The terminal bronchiole end and start with alveolus, and this is thin and vascularized sac structure. Vascularized mean they can involve in the exchange, The actual site for the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the alveoli site. Okay? Yes. The large surface area of the lungs for the diffusion, gas diffusion. Okay? The alveolus. Yeah, as we discussed here. Yeah. Next, structure of the lungs. Structure of the lungs. This is the NCERT diagram, where it is epiglottis, larynx, trachea further divided, they can enter into the lungs. Lungs are the chambers located in the thoracic chamber. Okay. There is layers, membranes are supported lungs. Okay. Two lungs located in the thoracic cavity. They covered by double layer pleura, which is membrane, lungs membrane we can call pleura. Okay, double layers. Just look into here. This is outer layer. This is inner layer. This is the fluid, which is yellow color is the fluid, pleural fluid. Okay, got it? So, outer layer they can attach to the thoracic chamber, inner layer they can cover alveolus surface. Okay? Yes. This is the diaphragm. Diaphragm in the down side, they can supported by ribs. The ventral part which is supported by sternum like this, dorsal part vertebral column. Okay, this is the location of lungs. We will discuss. Yeah, outer layer attached to the thoracic wall, inner layer attached to the lung surface. Between that there is a fluid which is involved into the reduce the friction. This is important. Friction. The pleural fluid reduce the friction, okay, of the lungs. Lungs are the very sensitive organs. Okay, the pleural fluid which is reduce the friction of the lungs. Okay? Yeah. The lungs are situated in the thoracic chamber, which autonomically airtight chamber, which is the thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column, ventrally by the sternum, laterally by the ribs on the lower side, which is dome shaped diaphragm. Got it? Yes. And thoracic cavity and diaphragm is what? What is thoracic cavity? What is diaphragm? Okay? Yes. Dorsal vertebral column, ventral sternum, lateral ribs and inferior, which is diaphragm. This is thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity is what we can call, this is rib cage also, we will discuss later. Thoracic cavity is airtight chamber. The volume changes the thoracic, the volume changes in the lungs. If the volume changes in the thoracic, that leads to the volume changes in the lungs. Okay? Yes. Next. Yeah. Functional division of the respiratory system. Okay? The bronchi, bronchiole. As we discussed, again, this is the repetition version about this PPT. Okay? Yes. Yeah. Conduction phase from the nostrils to terminal bronchioles, the function which is air transport and filtration and humidification. In the conduction phase, what going on? The functions air can transport, air can filtrate and air can humidificate. That can be filtrate also. They can trap the bacteria by the fluid. Okay? Yes. And respiratory exchange part, alveolus and ducts functions, they can gas exchange, which is O2 and CO2. Okay? This is what. The trachea primarily and second tertiarily and bronchi, initial bronchioles and supported by the incomplete cartilaginous rings, we did discuss. This is the conduction phase and respiratory phase. This part is respiratory, this part is conduction phase. Okay? The cartilage which is supported up to the bronchi only, up to the bronchi. Here only the cartilages which is supported. Okay? Yes. This is the respiratory phase. Nothing but. Yeah. Steps involved in the respiration. Yeah. Pulmonary ventilation, breathing, that is inhalation and exhalation, is oxygen rich air we have to take, carbon dioxide rich air we can exit out, that is the exchange of gases, which is inhalation and exhalation, we can call it as pulmonary ventilation. And alveolus gas exchange, the diffusion of oxygen and CO2 across the alveolus membrane. Okay? And gas transport, the gas which is carry the blood into the tissue, and tissue and gas exchange between the blood and body tissue. The cellular respiration, which is O2 like uses by the tissue, which is produce the energy. These are the steps involved in the respiration. We did discuss, right? Yes. And next, summary of key points for the NEET from the chapter. Okay? Focus on anatomical and physiological part. If the anatomical part, there is a like trachea which is enter into the thoracic T5. Okay? There is a structure of the lungs which is anatomy. Physiology part is what is going on in the exchange of gases between the mediums. Okay? Diffusion, active process or passive process. This is physiological part. And understand the structure and function relevant to the alveolus and diaphragm. Okay? Learn the steps for the respiration in order to emphasize NEET keywords: alveoli, trachea, bronchi, pleura, diffusion. These are keywords for the NEET. Okay? Keywords for the NEET. Next. Guys, diagram based questions. The label part of respiratory system and match the structure and function. Image based MCQs are there in the pattern, image based. like they can give you the alveolar sac and blood vessel exchange of gas, and they can ask you where the partial pressure is high, where the carbon dioxide partial pressure is high, where the oxygen partial pressure of high. They can give you the alveolar sac and blood vessel, image based, and they can give you the cartilaginous ring in the trachea. Okay, they can give you the image based lungs. There is a pleural membrane, outer layer and inner layer. Okay, they can ask you such questions. And previous year NEET question 2021 PYQ we will discuss. This is the important question. Alveolar gas exchange, which one of the following statement is incorrect? Incorrect. Okay, the diffusion membrane is made up of with alveolar epithelium, capillary is endothelium, their basement membrane also there. It is right statement. And second one, thickness of the diffusion membrane is lesser than 1 mm, 1 millimeters. Of course, less than 1 millimeter, right? This is also correct answer. And it is the site for the exchange of O2 and CO2, right? And D, the exchange occurs by active process. Exchange occur by active process? No, it is the passive process. Passive. Why? Because it is the diffusion. Diffusion is what? Passive mean there is a rich to poor, nothing but rich to poor. Where is the high partial pressure to low partial pressure? Okay, yeah. Next question. Yeah, cartilaginous rings. This is NEET 2019. Okay, the human respiratory system, cartilaginous rings are present in all bronchi and bronchiole? No. Only trachea? No. Trachea and bronchi? Yes, this is right. All respiratory tubes also wrong. This is 2019 question, NEET. Okay. Next, pleura is what? The fluid filled double membrane covering the lungs known as, which is pericardium, peritoneum, pleura and meninges. Which one is correct? C, pleura. Cardium mean it is like heart, right? And peritoneum mean there is a visceral organ. Visceral organs mean internal organs. Of course, lungs also internal organ, but there is no fluid like, okay. Meninges mean it is brain layers. So answer is what? Pleura. Next question. Yeah, conducting respiratory part, NEET 2018. Which one of the following is not part of the respiratory exchange surface? Alveolar duct, terminal bronchiole, alveoli and respiratory bronchiole. Which one? Terminal bronchiole. Alveolus mean it is like respiratory, not conduction. Alveolus respiratory. Respiratory bronchiole, respiratory. Conduction phase only terminal bronchiole. 2018 question. Okay. Next. The maximum amount of oxygen can diffuse from the alveoli into the blood when? Tell me. Which one is the answer? The maximum amount of oxygen diffuses from alveoli into the blood when? This is the physiological question, important question in the coming exam also. Partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolus is high, partial pressure of oxygen in the blood is low, and partial pressure of oxygen in the alveoli and blood is the same. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide blood is low. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveoli is low. Which one is right? Tell me. First one here. First one. The partial pressure of oxygen is alveoli is high, right? The partial pressure of oxygen in the blood is low, right? The partial pressure of blood oxygen is low, but CO2 is high in the blood. That is why the CO2 exchange from the high pressure to low pressure mean into the alveolus. Oxygen is high in the alveolus, low in the blood. High pressure to low pressure they can carry forward through the diffusion. So, first statement is right in this question, which is 2017 NEET question. Okay? Yeah. Guys, this is all over about the respiratory system only. Tomorrow we will going to discuss the mechanism of breathing and relevant questions. I hope you guys understand this topic. Okay? Thank you.